Welcome to the Professional Development Annual Measurable Goals by Charlotte Foster. This video is one in a series of activities to improve the writing, implementation, and monitoring of individualized education plans. By the end of this video, you will be able to read and analyze a student's present level of performance and write an appropriate annual goal.
Take a minute to read the 5 things that we are going to go over in today's agenda. There are many reasons why well-written annual goals are important to IEPs. For example, they help determine the skills for a student to learn for the upcoming year. They also help determine the appropriateness of services and placements for that student. Let's hear from a few of my colleagues to see what they have to say about the importance of well-written goals.
Hi, I'm Katie Noah. I'm an assistant principal at Verona High School, and one of my responsibilities is that I supervise the exceptional education department. I have been doing this for 14 years. Prior to being an assistant principal, I was an exceptional education teacher. I taught for 17 years in elementary school for a couple of years, middle school for a couple of years, and the rest of the years I spent working in a high school. Annual goals are important to an IEP because it really individualizes that document for that individual student based on what their needs are and what their disability is, and it really hones in on the academic and behavior and social situations that they may need to improve on. It also is a great tool for their teachers to know that those are the goals, that if they have a reading disability and they're working on specific reading goals, how the teachers can help the students be more successful in class.
The goals are the need of the IEP, and they are directly linked to the student needs.
When determining whether a goal is specific, one should ask themselves, is the action in the goal specific? What academic, functional, or behavioral skill is being tested? Look at the example below and discuss which parts of the goal are specific. When determining whether a goal is measurable, one should ask themselves, how will the teacher objectively assess this goal? Take a minute to read the example below with attention to the red lettering that tells whether or not the goal is measurable. To determine whether or not a goal is attainable or aligned, ask yourself, is the goal achievable for the student and aligned with the student's courses? Then you can ask yourself, what are the goals of the courses in which the student is enrolled, and is the skill something the student will need to succeed in those courses? Take a minute to read the example and answer those questions for yourselves. To determine whether or not a goal is realistic, ask yourself, is the goal results-oriented, reasonable, and relevant for the student? Take a look at the example below and discuss with your classmates. And lastly, your goal should be timely. Ask yourself, is there a time frame for the goal? Read the example below and discuss how the red wording at the end of the example displays timeliness. Activity 1. Pass out Activity 1. Read the annual goal examples. Use the checklist to determine if these goals are measurable. If the goals are lacking a component, write which component needs improvement. Note, we will not be rewriting any of these goals as we do not have the information yet on the student's present level of performance. You may stop the presentation now to work on Activity 1. Activity 2. How are these goals relevant to a student's present level of academic and functional performance? Review the example present level of performance. Use a highlighter, marker, or different colored pens to match the student's annual goals to one or more specific statements in the present level of performance. Don't forget to look at grades and test scores as well. Lastly, we're going to talk about writing annual goals. You already know that your goals need to be written smartly. What about what goes in the actual goal? In order to determine that, you should, number 1, analyze student data. Look at their test scores and grades and see in which areas students are struggling the most. Number 2, you should consult research about those content areas and what skills students need to be successful. 3, you should speak with teachers from those content areas to see their opinions. And lastly, we're going to hear some advice from some exceptional education colleagues of mine.
A couple of suggestions I can think of. One is for the case manager to really get to know the student. I always suggest to exceptional ed teachers that they go through the child's cumulative folder, and that way you can go back through their academic history and read how they did in elementary school and middle school, and what other IEPs said throughout the years. The other thing they need to do is read the psychological and the eligibility reports, and they can get a lot of information on that, on how they can better support that student when writing the IEP. Another suggestion I would make to the case manager would be to talk to the student's current teachers, because the current teachers are the ones that have them in class on a day-to-day basis, and they really get to know the students and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So those are my 3 important suggestions that I would recommend to case managers when writing goals.
Well, my first step is to go to the record room to see and find what goals have worked on the past and what that hasn't worked for that child in the past. After that, I do my research based on his needs to see what I can find out. Then after that, I collaborate with other teachers based on the student needs and their experience with that child. And also I really go to the student teacher on the content area and see what is expected from him for next year, to see if we can all together make a better goal for the student.
Activity 3 is the last page in your packet. In groups of 2 or 3, read the present levels of performance and write an annual measurable goal. When you finish, switch annual goals with another group and use the SMART goal checklist to evaluate the goal. Complete the discussion questions at the end.
Thank you for participating in the Professional Development Annual Measurable Goals by Charlotte Foster. Remember, keep your goals SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. For more in this series, tune into my YouTube station with the link below.